Hi, Bruce Johnson here, and welcome to the Wired to Grow show, where we interview successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and subject matter experts to help you figure out how you can build a more scalable and successful business. Now, today's guest is going to be Patrick Bryant. If you're not familiar with Patrick, Patrick is the co-founder of the GoToTeam, which he started in 1997 with an SBA loan that's now grown to be the largest staffed broadcast mobile team for the U.S., and they do video for like NBC, for HGTV, Food Network, and Fox Sports, etc. In addition to that, he's also a partner in several ventures. He's also a partner in Cigar Row, in Easton Systems, in Bryant Brothers Realty, wonder who that's with, and then also funding Charleston.com. In addition to all that, if it wasn't enough, he's also one of the co-founders of the Harbor Entrepreneur Center here in Charleston, South Carolina, as well as a subset of that, the Harbor Accelerator. So without further ado, welcome Patrick to the first edition of the Wired to Grow show.
Thanks, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to have you here, and we want to kind of go back in time, back to 1997, when you decided that you were going to stop just producing video and you wanted to create a company that actually did that video. So can you go back and tell us what precipitated that, and how did you get started?
Well, so I was a broadcast major at the University of South Carolina. I was always involved in television, and I was working for the local television station. Met my boss that would end up being my co-founder in the company GoToTeam. We went to the Atlanta Olympics and happened to be there when the bombing happened, and were very interested in covering that story, and actually got offered an opportunity to cover that story, run as stringers shooting video for NBC News. And like good employees do, we picked up the phone to our bosses and said, this sounds like an amazing opportunity.
Right.
How would you feel about us being gone for the next few weeks as we cover this story? And they did what good bosses do and said, absolutely not. We need you shooting footage for the local NBC affiliate and doing your job. So we at that moment said, okay, we're not going to make enemies here of our folks, but we know there's an opportunity. We see this as something we could do. So pretty much at that moment, we were absolutely focused on write a business plan, get involved in that network, start talking to people, and figuring out how we could pull that off. And so it took us about 8 months to write the plan, get the funding, and then that was so. I mean, we're talking summer of '96 to October of '97. So right over a full year, it took us to get it all together and get in business.
Yeah. Now, what do you think it was in you that caused you to say, I'm going to take that risk? Because you meet a lot of people who have ideas, but they don't actually take the risk. So what was it about you that said, I'm going to go for that?
Well, I tell you, I really vividly remember a failure in my dad's life that really set me on a course. When I was in high school, my dad started a company that failed, and it was pretty painful to our entire family and to him personally, and that was not a great experience. And I remember thinking a couple of years after it, when I had time to reflect on that pain point in life, and I remember thinking, you know what, I'm not going to wait until I've worked for a company like he had for his whole career and then put myself in a position that's my one shot. I'm just going to go out and fail right now. I want to be the entrepreneur, business owner from the very beginning. And if I fail, then I'll do it again, and I'll fail again. Like I was really committed to starting my own business early on. Now I did get out into the work world first and learn some things, have some expertise in some areas, but I definitely knew pretty early on that I wanted to own companies.
Now, that's interesting because a lot of people would have said, my father failed, I don't want to do that. So there was still something inside of you that wanted to prove something, or what was it inside you that said, I'm going to do this at that age?
Well, I mean, you're right. I completely agree. But for me, it just happened to be a motivator, right? I saw what he wanted. I understood why he wanted it. I think he actually executed it pretty well. But the market didn't come together the way that he had hoped. And so I learned a lot in helping him start that business. And so that for sure, a lot of people would have said, "Oh gosh, that was painful. I don't want to touch that rail again." And I actually thought, "Wow, that was painful. Let's go do it again."
Yeah, which is an interesting thing about your personality. And just some full disclosure, I know Patrick. This isn't our first conversation. There are people who are ready, fire, aim people. You're a fire, ready, aim person. Like, you're about the fastest implementer I know. Was that true all the time as you were growing up, or what?
Absolutely, for sure. I mean, I definitely am the type of person that's willing to do the crazy thing and do it quickly. I wouldn't say that I take abnormal risk. I'm actually relatively conservative when it comes to a lot of matters, financial matters. But having said that, I will make a decision with when I feel like I have enough of the data. I'll pull the trigger very quickly and take risk.
Yeah. So when you first got started, what was kind of your first year like? Was there a big break in that first year? Or was it just total pain, or what?
Well, so we started in October of '97, and we worked our butts off between October and February. I can remember we used to call it dialing for dollars, and I would be calling every major broadcast network, asking them if we could be working for them that day, and researching who they were and doing just all that hard work, customer development process. And that lasted for that time period. But the reason I bring it to an end in February is because in February we did get that big break. We had an opportunity where the Monica Lewinsky story broke in the White House, and we knew a number of NBC contacts, and we had done some small projects for them during the interim, and so they knew us as a known entity. And so we were ready to run out the door and get on that story. And once we got on that story, it was 8 weeks in front of the Watergate, following Monica Lewinsky and that entire story, which was incredibly interesting. But that also put us in a path of, okay, now this is a team that's known and they can do what needs to be done. And so after that story, marketing to the rest of the people inside of the other organizations became much easier, just because we were a known product at that point.
So was this the point where you started hiring some people, or did you guys just hustle yourselves for a couple years, or how did that take place?
Well, we're a service-based business, so we definitely started out just the two of us. We did hire someone within the next year. It would go until the election of 2000. So about 3 years later, well, let's see, that's October '97, February '08. We're talking about a year and a half, really. There's a lot of lead up to that election. During that time period, working with NBC, we got put on an assignment to cover the election. And when that happened, we were out on the road nonstop. Actually, at this point, I was working in the office and doing some producing, but my business partner was gone all the time shooting. And the NBC folks came to us and said, "You're doing a terrific job. If you had someone else, we'd take them tomorrow." And
wow.
That's what we call opportunity, right? So we did have someone that we were confident in, and we spun him out immediately and bought a gear package. And then in about June of that year, NBC said, "Well, you guys are killing it. That second guy's amazing. If you had a third, we'd take him." And so that's how we went from one crew to 3 crews in about 6 months.
Wow. Well, you know the track record of most small business owners and entrepreneurs at hiring, and usually it's pretty bad. So back in those first couple years, What would be a story of really making a bad hire? I mean, what was one of the lessons you had to learn the hard way about being better at hiring?
Well, in our particular case, even the position we were hiring was somewhat undefined because in our business, you do a lot of work with freelancers.
Okay.
And so we had a ton of freelance people coming in and out of our world working with us. And so you do begin to refine your skill at understanding who's capable of doing a particular assignment very, very quickly. But as we grew, we started hiring directors of photography. And one of the things that I learned as we started that process was our apprenticeship program. Mm-hmm. What we decided was that there needed to be a high level of training to these particular individuals if they were going to perform at the quality level that the networks were expecting. And so even if they were good people, mm-hmm. we had to dump a lot of training in them. In the early days of the apprenticeship, we would expect to keep 50% of the people.
Wow.
So we would hire them and then say, wow, we really do think this is the best person. And within 2 to 3 months, mm-hmm. Either they found out they didn't like that lifestyle of being on the road shooting, or maybe we figured out that competency-wise they weren't the right fit for our company. But in the early years, it was very much a flip of the coin. And so for us, it was just speed. How quickly can we determine that someone isn't the right fit, or help them determine that they're not the right fit, which is quite frankly okay. I mean,
exactly.
I'm all right with that. If you do the job for 2 weeks and then you go, wow, I really don't like doing this. Okay.
How many people did you have when you decided you were going to do the apprenticeship program?
So actually, that was pretty early on. We started doing our apprenticeship when I think we might have had 4 employees.
Okay. Now, most entrepreneurs don't even think about bringing in apprentices at that stage. Right? What made you?
It was all about growth and training.
Exactly.
So we knew that if we could, what I now know, and I wouldn't have said these terms at all 15 years ago, but what I now know is if you want to grow a service-based business, it's all about the people, right?
Right.
And so you got to have good people, and you got to train them. And so we stumbled into that fact, mm-hmm. and learned that, okay, if our clients want more crews on the street, then we got to find good people, and the only way we're going to find them is to give them really good training.
Yeah. So in those early years, as you're building out your brand, what did you do to position yourself as different from the other crews that were out there?
Great question, and that's really how we've grown, is that GoToTeam has, from the beginning, had a brand of being the highest possible quality. And that's really why we had to go to the apprenticeship, is because if we just hired someone else, even if they had been doing it on their own for 3 to 5 years, we had some tricks and some tools that we wanted to give them that brought it up to an even higher level. So for us, it was all about high quality. That was our brand, and making sure that the client got absolutely everything that they wanted out of that shoot day.
So in your apprenticeship program, was that kind of a low pay thing and they were doing that for a year? Was it more of a, we're paying you, but it's an apprenticeship program?
No, it's what I would call pretty close to market rate.
Okay.
We were hiring people that had been working in a television station 2 to 5 years.
Good.
And we hire them for about what they were making at the television station. So sometimes there have been cases where people might have been taking a pay cut. Maybe they were a cameraman in Boston, mm-hmm. and to come on with GoToTeam, they were taking a pay cut. But for the most part, it's about neutral. And then as they grow within GoToTeam, there's a lot more upside for them versus if they'd stayed in a broadcast role.
Exactly. I wanted you to clarify that, because when people hear apprenticeship, they think, oh, man, you got people for free for a year? Wow. No, you were paying them, but it was a program of training before they were actually out on the road doing their own DP work.
That's exactly right. The way we do it is we hire them, we put them with another director of photography. They work with that crew for generally speaking 6 to 12 months, and then at the end of that program, then they get their own crew and do their own thing.
Very cool. From a strategic level, that was a pretty key decision you guys made to help grow GoToTeam.
Absolutely. I've said many times that was our big idea. Okay. We were a service-based company, so there wasn't a lot of innovation or IP or anything else. You just got to do it better, and you got to establish a really strong brand. And in our particular case, the apprenticeship is the tool that really helped us do both of those things.
That's awesome. If there was one or two other really good strategic decisions you think that you made, what would they be?
Well, they're of course tied together. The first of which is hiring good people, right? Then giving them really good training. Incentive-based pay, I think, is huge in a service-based business, especially fragmented market business where you're competing with a lot of other companies that do things similar to you. So in the GoToTeam model, all of our directors of photography are paid based on what they're billing the client. So it really does position them to do really, really well if they are staying busy and working with those clients on a regular basis. We like to say we'll pay you a base salary to watch TV, and if you make TV, you'll make a lot more money.
That's awesome. Now, you were originally talking about those early years, you were going in and dialing for dollars and just knocking on doors, etc. You now mentor other entrepreneurs. When you observe them, what are some of the things that they just don't seem to get about the sales process and about how to get the first or a big client?
The thing they don't get is how much hard work it is and that they need to physically do it. I've helped a lot of startup businesses, and a thing that I see often is, wow, look at we could really spend today working on a new logo, or let's refine the website, or let's make our product better, or, I could go on for quite some time of the things that I consider to be secondary priorities. The number one priority is, what is our widget and who are we selling it to? My big push is, I'm not a sales driven guy. I'm a business development guy.
Right.
And what that means is we've got to get the product in the client's hands, and then the client will tell us what's working, what's not working, how we can iterate. Right. That to me is the most important thing. We have to get feedback from the client, and they're not a client if they're not paying for it. That's another little slip up that I hear a lot of entrepreneurs say, oh, I've built this widget and I gave it to 5 of my friends and they loved it. Okay, I love free things. I can only imagine you got good feedback. Did you charge them all what you expect the market to pay and then ask their feedback? Those are two different
completely
pieces.
Different.
So for that to me is the biggest thing, is getting entrepreneurs to use the business development process, the customer development process, and get out there and talk to their customers, learn from paying customers what they need to do better to iterate the product. And then if you're telling me this is, 5 customers have paid for this and they all believe that we need to tweak the packaging a little bit, okay, absolutely, then let's tweak the packaging.
Right. So going back to those early days, as you started growing, when was it when you got to the place where you knew you were exceeding your capacity to lead and grow GoToTeam? When did that happen?
Well, I personally wanted to leave GoToTeam a couple of times during its stage in life, only because I'm not a marathon runner. I'm a sprinter, but I continued to see opportunities in the marketplace that we could expand it rapidly. And so I would think, wow, this is really hard. I'd love to go start up another startup and let this one keep going, but the juice isn't out of this yet. I need to keep going. And then in 2013, when I was with the company 15 years, I knew that now we had a significant number of employees, and I had an operations manager at the time, Sean Moffitt, who's my business partner in GoToTeam. Right. And Sean is a amazing business development, customer sales guy himself, in addition to being a hard operations, let's get this done mentality. And I knew that he was better to lead the company from there than me. And at that point, it was very easy to step back and let him take that role. The thing that I now say and know about myself, having been through the experience a couple of times, is somewhere around 10 employees, I no longer want to work in the company. And at 20, you don't want me to work in the company. I don't babysit well. I'm not particularly good at having a long list of emails from people telling me, little small problems in the organization. I'm much more big picture and right. Let's grow it fast. And once it gets to that level, it really does start to change.
Yeah, my experience has been that around 8 is when it really starts happening. So your idea at 10, I'm done, fits that pattern.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yep.
Now, you frequently will talk about there was a time in your experience where you knew you couldn't do it and you needed to get a group of peers around you. What was it that precipitated that group of peers, and how did they really help you?
Well, many moons ago, I knew that I wanted to hang out with other entrepreneurs. I just love hearing the story, and when they tell me their even bad stories, it really energizes me and says, okay, other people are experiencing this.
Common pain helps.
Right, it does. And then on the good side, it really charges me up when someone's doing great. And so I knew I wanted to hang out with other entrepreneurs. And in that process, looking for how do I do that, I stumbled into the forum concept, which is absolutely amazing, and I recommend to anyone that's looking for positive feedback. And so that was really the beginning of putting together a group of people to help each other through a peer mastermind type process.
So in a day that you guys were getting together, what was really beneficial? What happened in a day, just as kind of a quick outline?
So a forum in general is designed where you get 6 to 8 people together in a room, all with the common thought process, in this case, entrepreneurship, all people that own businesses. So my forum group, everyone has started at least one business, but most of them multiple. And in a typical day, we get together at 10 o'clock. We'll do a debrief of 8 minutes for each of those folks, and that allows everyone to lay out what they're working on at that particular moment, what's on their plate, what problems they might be having. And that's incredibly helpful, because just hearing other people and what they're working on really does allow you to connect in a way you just can't imagine.
Exactly.
And then we have, in my group, we then have lunch, and over lunch we might talk about a topic, but then we'll deep dive on specific items that were brought up during the debrief. So I might pick a topic like, I'm dealing with a workers' comp issue right now. And then I have a time that I can tell everyone at the table everything about this workers' comp issue, with all the background information. And immediately following, then they can ask questions to make sure they understand the whole deal, and then feedback and say, here's what we see, and this is where we think you could go with this issue. So that's really, really powerful. Having said that, what I know about Forum is that it's such an amazing process, because you learn by giving good advice to other people, teacher role. You also learn because you ask for advice, and those other people serve as teachers and help you think through issues. And then the third most interesting way is you watch someone else have a problem and get taught. And you don't even know that you're going to have that workers' comp problem in 3 months, but then you do, and you go, oh my gosh, I was just here. My buddy just went through this, and I already know what to do because I watched it unfold. The group of people that I'm in is incredibly powerful in my decision-making process and in my contact list. Many times I'll bring up something, I've got a particular issue that I need to work on, and they will absolutely, even just after debrief, like we don't even have to deep dive on it. They'll just go, hey, I happen to hear, you've got an issue with workers' comp. Here's the attorney I use. This is what you need to do. And that to me is so incredibly powerful. Every month when we get together, I would say that at least 8 of those issues, one for every person, somebody gets something out of it.
Well, and the other thing that's also interesting is also observing the questions people are asking, right? Which helps you learn how to think just as you're observing. So it's not just the regular interaction people are thinking. There's that extra benefit of I'm learning from these others. How do you attack a problem? How do you think about a problem? How do they think about that? And that's also pretty valuable too.
I totally agree. And I would even add that one of the interesting takeaways I had from the group is one of my forum mates is we're almost identical. Our Myers-Briggs type is the same. We have a very similar life experience. We're both serial entrepreneurs. We come at problems very in a similar way. Having said that, there are multiple times when it comes down to, do you agree with this or disagree? That, should I buy this business? Should I? How would you value this? That he gives me advice that is completely different than what I was thinking. He'll just come at it completely sideways, which I probably would too if I wasn't in the weeds. Right? I have all this data, so I've kind of locked in on my viewpoint. And then
he's just hovering here.
He looks at the same data and goes, oh, but have you thought of this? And I'm like, wow, I just wouldn't have had that perspective if I hadn't taken the time to share this with you.
Yeah. Now, one of the things about investing made me think of a question. When you start a company, almost always do it with a co-founder. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking, there are a lot of people who might be listening who are saying, that sounds nice, but if it's my idea, why do I want to split equity with anybody? So if someone came to you as an entrepreneur and said that, how would you respond?
I would be completely happy with them doing whatever it was that made them happy in life. I mean, we're all very different personalities, and if you're the type of entrepreneur that's a solo deal, absolutely, you can make that work. I'll tell you about my particular personality type, which is I get into businesses because I think it's fun. And the people that I'm working with are fun, and the group dynamic to me is what makes it fun. I do own, like you said, Bryant Brothers. Actually, that's not my brother.
Oh, that's funny.
The Bryant Brothers are my 2 children, Paige and Jack. So that particular enterprise, the real estate holdings are specifically mine. I mean, obviously they're mine and my wife's, but I really there's no other founder there. And in that particular case, it's real estate. It's kind of lock and tackle. I'm not, doing a lot of decision making and pivoting in the market. Having said that, even then, I'm happy to go into a building with a partner, because I like to just be around other people and hear their ideas, and that's what makes it fun for me. So when I think about founding a new enterprise, I generally look for someone that's going to fill another piece of it and be a different opinion than mine, and that is why I'm mostly listed as a co-founder.
So if somebody at the accelerator comes up to you and says, I'm thinking about doing, something with a co-founder or maybe 3. How do we split equity? Are there some general rules that you would give somebody about how to split equity when you have 2 or 3 partners at that early stage?
I think it completely depends on who's doing what piece, who came up with what piece. Is there technology involved that someone came up with? If everyone's pretty well equal in the beginning, then I can understand having an even split. Having said that, the worst case scenario in equity to me is a 50-50.
Exactly.
I have many times sat at a table that I could have been in a 50-50 and said, I tell you what, how about I own 40 and you own 60 and this is going to be your deal? Because I don't want to be in a position that you have a stalemate and no one can make a decision. That's just incredibly painful. On the other hand, I've been there and thought, okay, this really is my deal and I need your help. And so we're not going to do a 50-50. You're going to take on this particular role and I'm going to have a larger piece of the steak. And that's, I think, also acceptable.
Yeah. When you and I talk about these companies starting up, you frequently talk about it needs to be a scalable idea. So when you use that phrase, people use it to mean all kinds of things. For you, Patrick Bryant, what does scalable mean?
Scalable means that we can sell it to people around the world repeatedly. If we had a market beyond the world, then I would say I would extend there too. It's scalable because it is a product or maybe some services that we can absolutely continue to sell to other people. I'll go to the negative just to further explain,
okay.
Which is if I'm in a business that I'm only going to sell to the Charleston area, right. I.e. I'm a juice company because the way juice works, it expires after a certain amount of time and we're not able to ship it outside of Charleston. Well, there's a product that's in Charleston. That's a great business. I'm not averse to someone starting a juice company. That's terrific. It's just not what I look for when I'm looking for a startup, because I want something that once we get it going, I can sell it to anyone in the world. Now, obviously, I might narrow my market in the beginning to make it easy to communicate with them.
Right.
But I want a product that can indeed scale everywhere.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of it is repeatable. I want to be able to sell it multiple times. I don't want to sell just that widget one time and then be done with that customer. That can be a very painful transaction, because now I've sold it once and now I just got to keep finding new customers. It's much better if I have a product that I know they're going to come back and want to continue using.
Now, when you started the Harbor Accelerator, one of the things you said is that we don't want to be an accelerator that's just tech driven, right? We want to take mom and pop and other kinds of businesses in there. How difficult is it to get some of those people to think scalable as opposed to technology?
Once you start explaining it and helping them understand scale, generally speaking, they really start to grab on pretty quickly. But it forces them to pivot whatever idea they might have been working on.
Right.
And so I can think of 10 people right now that I've talked to in the last year since the Harbor started, where they came in with a specific idea that I thought was not that scalable, and our conversation with them was, look, it's not a bad idea, but it's really got to scale. So how can we pivot off to something that is a product or a service that could sell everywhere? And those 10 that I'm thinking about have come back saying, okay, yeah, I heard you. I get what you were saying, and this consulting idea that I'm working on is it's fine. It's paying the bills, but I've really been spending a lot of time thinking about how I can produce something that I could sell with great scale.
Yeah. So as you look back over the first two cohorts that got through the accelerator, what would you say would be one or two of the things that at this stage they're still not quite getting, they're really struggling with as they're beginning their entrepreneurial journey?
I'm so proud of all the cohort companies. They are working incredibly hard, and I can tell you that I am personally shocked to the positive that all 15 still exist.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me on day one how many success stories would come out of the first cohort of the accelerator, I would have said, let's just do the math. I mean, at least 50% are going to die, right? I mean,
exactly.
I'm not particularly morbid, but that's just the reality. And so they're all actually still alive. They're all running forward and selling product and trying to move the business forward. So I feel really, really good about that particular piece. And I think the reason for that is that in the accelerator, we teach a lot of what we've talked about, which is go sell something to someone. Don't sit around thinking about how to make a great product. Sell it to people. And if you do that, then just by sheer momentum, you'll have clients, even if they're not enough to pay the bills. But that will give you the energy to say, okay, someone does care about this product. I should keep going. So I do feel really, really good about that.
That's awesome. Now, at the end of the accelerator program, they go to pitch. And when they go to pitch, you and I are often on two different sides. I'm usually on the side coaching the teams to pitch. You're usually the one evaluating the pitch. As that happens, I can almost guarantee that there's one question you're going to ask, and that one question of everyone is always going to be, what have you done to protect your IP? So
Sure.
You ask all the time. So why is that so important to you, and why don't entrepreneurs tend to get that?
Well, they either get it too much or they don't get it enough, right?
Right.
I've met with many entrepreneurs who have terrific, innovative ideas that are scalable, and they've spent all their time on protecting the IP. They have patent after patent. They've just really worked on iterating the product, but they haven't put it in the marketplace at all. And because they were so scared of someone stealing the idea, and I think that can really make for a tough side of it. Flipping to exactly what you're saying, if they haven't paid attention to any of their IP, then they can really have competitors nipping at their heels very quickly. So that's innovation in general is our second platform of the Harbor Accelerator. We look for scalability and then innovation, and we're hoping that they have a protectable idea that is in a consolidated marketplace, something that will allow them to run for 12 months, 18 months uninhibited, that if competitors see it, they can't just immediately start doing it, right?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of having some sort of protection in the marketplace. Is that it gives you a runway of time that you can get the product out without competitors seeing your success and immediately replicating what you're working on.
Yeah, excellent. Now, as you look at all the different businesses you're involved with now, you've got multiple businesses. You're learning, I'm sure, how to manage your time differently than you did 10 years ago. So to people who are entrepreneurs, if you were to give them 2 or 3 of the things that you've been learning about how to be more productive, what would they be?
Well, it's very different when you're running a company than when you're in the role that I'm in. I in the last 2 years, went to a policy of checking my email once per day. That has saved me a tremendous amount of time and puts me in a position that I stay in the loop. I'm not out, but it doesn't allow people to put stuff on my plate in an urgent manner through email. And my close business partners and everyone else know to text me and communicate with me on the phone, which I like a lot. So that to me is one of those time management pieces. But when you're running a business and you're starting up and your clients want direct communication with you all the time, maybe that's not particularly practical.
Right.
The other one that I implore a lot is that I am a very high delegator. I'm very concerned with making sure things are done properly, so I'm not scared of educating and making sure that the person I'm handing this off to understands what needs to get accomplished. But I'm also have a team of people both in each individual business as well as people that help me get stuff off my plate. To me, that is the number one thing that can suck an entrepreneur, is when you get to that level that you're just spending all of your time working in the business and working on checklist, to-do list items and reactively instead of having the time to work on the business and being much more long-term strategic thinking on a daily basis.
Right. Now looking back after it's been 18 years since you started, if Patrick Bryant 2015 could go back and talk to Patrick Bryant 1997. What advice would you give young Patrick?
There's no question, and I've learned it in the last 12 months how to articulate it. I think I would have said it in about 30 minutes a year ago. Now I can say it in a sentence, which is, as quickly as possible, pivot and focus on something scalable and innovative. It's not that I don't love GoToTeam. I absolutely do. Service-based businesses are terrific. The people that work there are absolutely tremendous. But it took us 15 years to build a company that is of its size now with 13 offices. And I am convinced that you can do it so much faster and accelerate that process if you go into a particular business line that is a product or a service that is new to the marketplace, hopefully, and protectable IP would be the perfect scenario, and then that it is scalable and an idea that we can get all around the world. To me, that's the key.
Yeah. Before we got on this call, I had asked you a question because I came to your office and you've got Cigar Row, which is an interesting little business. And as we're walking out after you showed me the whole deal, I said, so how often do you smoke a cigar? And you said, not that often. Now, most entrepreneurs think, whatever I'm going to get in, I need to really be passionate about that thing. It's got to be like my hobby. I need to get up thinking about it all the time. And that's not necessarily true. So how do you think differently about business now than what a lot of people say you should be thinking about business?
Well, the beauty is entrepreneurs start where they're at, right? Just by definition. They look around and they say, what do I know about and what can I start a business doing? And that's what I did. I knew about journalism. I knew about video, and I understood that piece. I had a network that allowed me to execute on that. That's the third pillar to the Harbor Accelerator: scale, innovation, and ability to execute. So what can I execute? And that's what most entrepreneurs do, which I think is great. That's what we should do. Having said that, I am not one of those people that thinks every single business I get into is something that I have to absolutely love and embrace myself. In the case of Cigar Row, I like to say that before I owned a cigar business, I smoked one cigar a year. Now I can go into Humidor and get any kind of cigar from around the world whenever I want. I smoke 4.
I thought you were going to say 2.
Right, and maybe 4 is a stretch. I don't know. But it's not that I don't like, cigars. That's fine. They're good. But what I love is selling things people want to buy.
Exactly.
And so I knew that Cigar Row had a lot of potential, and I was very excited about it because there are a lot of people in the world that passionately love cigars. I just don't happen to be one of them.
Right. And what's the premium? What's the premium cigar?
We have a line of cigars called London Cut cigars. London Cut cigars has the top of the line cigar in the United States, which is called Black Tie. Mm-hmm. And Black Tie is a cigar that is wrapped in 24 karat gold, and you burn the gold. It stays in the ashtray, but it is an incredibly luxurious experience designed to be smoked by the absolute pinnacle of people in the world. The cigar itself costs at retail in Las Vegas $250 per stick. So one smoke is $250. Yes, and
literally up in smoke.
But it is a terrific product. I mean, the cigar is really good, and the gold is an experience like no other that you've experienced. So it is a really fun product.
Okay, last question, and I just realized our time is up here. Let's say you're sitting at the Harbor Accelerator, and one of the students in the new cohort says, okay, Patrick, what is it that really drives you? What are the core values that really emanate from you? How would you respond to that new cohort student?
Well, for me personally, number one is integrity. I really want to be known as a person that does the right thing, seeks out the right thing, And when I give a client a promise, I absolutely want to deliver on that promise. That is paramount. And when there are times that I can't deliver, I want to go to that client and be honest and ethical and explain why I couldn't deliver.
Right.
So to me, that's my first core value. And I find that if you do that, generally speaking, clients will forgive even the errors.
Correct.
And understand that sometimes bad things happen, and it wasn't necessarily by some sort of fraudulent, fault of mine, but instead an error that even maybe I caused, but didn't mean to. So to me, that's the number one is integrity, and then beyond that, I try the best I can to have a lot of fun.
Integrity and fun, not a bad mix. I would think action would also be probably in that list.
Absolutely, no question. I do not sit still. That's baked into everything that I do. We move very, very quickly. When we see an opportunity, we get to work on it that day.
Yes. In fact, this may be about the longest you've sat all day.
Very true.
Hey, Patrick, if somebody is listening and they're really interested in the Harbor Accelerator, how should they find out about that? Where should they go?
They can go to theharborec.com, Harbor, so like www.harborec.com. That's the Harbor Entrepreneur Center website, and that will give you all the information about what we're doing and how we're doing it. Or I would implore anyone in the Charleston area to come to one of the events for the Harbor Entrepreneur Center, because that's really where you can connect with a lot of people and get to know others that are working on entrepreneur ventures.
I get those two confused all the time too, by the way.
Well, the accelerator actually was our minimum viable product.
Exactly.
So for quite some time, we were calling it the Harbor Accelerator, and then it expanded into a full
right.
entrepreneur center.
And one of the cool parts about that, by the way, for those of you who don't know, is that it really was you doing an accelerator, because it was about 14 weeks from the idea to the launch. So you actually proved the product itself.
Well, and that's why, we wanted to know, do people care about entrepreneurship in Charleston? And this is something we thought we could do, and we knew we had some mentors that would be willing to give us some time. So we figured, what the heck, let's do it and see what happens. And if all else fails, we'll meet some new people and have wasted some time. But instead, we learned that people really were engaged in entrepreneurship, and our tech scene in Charleston is off the charts.
Exactly.
If you're watching from anywhere else and you're thinking about making a move, Charleston is absolutely a place to come to that is growing and on fire with entrepreneurship.
Yeah, absolutely. And if someone wants to get a hold of you, is that the best place to go as well, or someplace else?
Absolutely. The Harbor Entrepreneur Center. I'm the chairman of the board. Executive Director John Osborne can also help anyone get plugged in, and we'd be happy to help them do that.
Well, Patrick, thank you so much for being the guest for the first episode of the Wire to Grow show. We're so glad you're here. And for those of you listening, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel wherever you're listening to this on. If you're on iTunes, subscribe there. If you liked it and you loved the ideas that you heard from Patrick, hopefully you'll want to come back. And if you can invite any other either business owner, entrepreneur, or entrepreneur-to-be to take a look at this podcast and join this community as we help other business owners and entrepreneurs figure out how they can create more scalable and successful businesses. To your accelerated success, Bruce out.